All right, everybody. Welcome to today's AD Roundtable. We are going to go ahead and get moving to respect everybody's time. Uh, in just a minute here. Here we go. All right, so thanks for joining. I'm your host, Don Baker, Director of Athletics for the Cobb County School District, located about 25 miles northwest of Atlanta. Thanks to the NIAAA for the platform. This is something that continues to grow, continues to get better and better, hopefully, and hope that you're finding value in it. Excited that the AD Roundtable is presented by Daktronics, the experts in scoreboards, video displays, and audio systems trusted by high schools across the country. Whether you're upgrading your scoreboard or dreaming of a big-time video board, Daktronics has the tools to make it happen and can even help you pay for it through sponsorship opportunities. They've been doing this since 1968, and they know how to make your game day unforgettable. Learn more at daktronics.com. If you've got a topic that you'd like to discuss today or a question that you'd like to ask our special guest as we talk, just put that in the chat, and then Becky will help facilitate that once we get to the end of our Q&A. So today we are joined by Alex Demchik. Alex is a former SEC quarterback for the Missouri Tigers. He graduated with a degree in communication and a minor in business. Alex is a keynote speaker, entrepreneur, and author who challenges businesses, schools, and teams to maximize their impact. He's a best-selling author of The Sale with John Gordon. That is one of our book recommendations today, which has been endorsed by Dave Ramsey, Ed Milet, and Michael Porter Jr. Alex is also the author of Thrive You, an inspirational book featuring stories from 100 collegiate and professional athletes from across the country. He is also the CEO of ShareYourStory.com, a company that helps leaders turn their experiences into meaningful influence through books, media, and speaking. He has spoken to a wide range of organizations, including the Cincinnati Reds, U.S. Space Force, Allstate, Edward Jones, and many others. Alex's mission is to help people increase their performance, enhance their leadership, and maximize their potential. And that is exactly what he's going to do for us today. Alex, thanks for saying yes, and welcome to the AD Roundtable.
Thanks for having me, Don. I've been hearing great things about the show and you guys, so it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. I got to know Alex a little bit through the Hanging with AD podcast when we were able to have a nice conversation with him a while back, and thought it would be great to get him on here. Now, Alex, a lot of leadership books tell you what to do, but the best ones come from a deeper purpose. Something the author has seen or experienced firsthand. I like to equate it to a forest fire, right? Everybody can look and go, something's burning over there, right? It's easy to do that, right? But what is that deeper why? So I'm curious, what is that deeper why behind writing The Sale, and why was this message important for you to share now?
Great question. So I actually want to take it before I jump into that back to college when I was playing. I was a walk-on at Mizzou, and when I think about the impact of an athletic director. So when I got on campus, I didn't even know really anything about the athletic administration. I see this guy who is on the side of the road, kind of on near the highway near Mizzou, picking up trash. And I'm like, and he's like, I'm in a suit, and he looked pretty dope, looked fresh. And I was like, wow, who is this guy? And multiple times I'd see him doing this. Well, it comes to find out that was Mike Alden, the longtime athletic director. So if anyone in the chat knows Mike, just drop a line that if you know Mike in the chat there. But turns out Mike Alden, I mean, this long tenure, this amazing career, super connector, an amazing guy. I watched him like do all the small things as an AD. And what's cool is like full circle, years later, I got to get to know Mike pretty well, and now he's doing amazing things in athletics. And I was able to tell him, like, hey, man, as a college student, I saw you doing these things that wasn't part of your job description at all. Like having integrity in the small things, like made a mark on me as a college student. And, I remember hearing a Billy Graham quote a few years ago that said, and maybe you guys have heard this being, in athletics and education and working with students, the Billy Graham quote said, the average teacher or coach will impact more people in 1 year than the average person will in a lifetime, which, yeah, I don't know how you measure if that's, the statistics of that, but I think that's true. And I think what's even more true is that's true of an AD as well. Like as an athletic director, you are around so many people. parents, coaches, teachers, all the different things, different levels that all of you in this call are at. And so I just want to just, I guess, encourage this group. Again, I'm thankful to be here for a few minutes, but you have a platform. And I think with all the different giftings and abilities that you have, like if you are on this call right now, you are one of the top wealth earners uh, in the world, right? I think a lot of times we maybe finish the workday and we're like, oh man, like, should I be doing this or putting in a million hours? At the end of the day, like you are blessed. And so I think a big part of my message is like you are blessed to be a blessing. And I think the moment we forget that is when we start to experience burnout or we get frustrated. And so to answer your question, our book, The Sale, is a message about integrity. And so, I love speaking at high schools or colleges, going to the athletic department and speaking on, especially with athletes, like the foundational principles of like, hey, the things that you do today actually allow you to set up like this awesome tomorrow as a foundational piece. And so I think so often as coaches, as ADs, as administrators, we think about like the competence and the X's and the O's and the strategy of like, wow, this is a really talented person. But I think often we see it in ESPN ticker all the time. We forget sometimes the character that means I think even more. And so my challenge to us is while you're growing in your competence, what would it look like for you for your character to actually keep pace with that? And so you can, I think when you think about even the word integrity, me and John talk about it in the book. The word integrity, the root word is actually integer, which means a whole number, right? And so when you think about someone who's a fully integrated leader, there's something attractive about that person. And so I think that's just my encouragement, my challenge to all of you on this call today is you have a platform. Um, I can think back to specific people in my career, my life as an athlete, ADs, coaches who unfortunately didn't use that platform in a way that served and loved and cared for other people. But ultimately, you have been given that platform, and my challenge is like, what are you going to do with that?
That's powerful. Now, you talk about, we're going to get into integrity in a minute, and you talk about having those innate abilities because you're in the role that you've been placed in. In education-based athletics, we're constantly asking people to buy in, coaches to a vision, student athletes to standards, parents to decisions. And what I've noticed is that it's not always the most knowledgeable leader that gets the best results, right? It's often that one that communicates most effectively and more importantly consistently. Some leaders just seem to have a way of connecting and moving people, while others, despite having good intentions, I think everybody does, they just don't get the same level of buy-in. And I think we all have coaches on our staff that struggle with that. So let me ask you this: what communication habits separate elite leaders from average ones when it comes to influence?
It's a great question, and I think it's great to slow down and think through that as a leader because I think ultimately so many leaders who continue to grow and scale to the highest levels, many leaders who have success, I mean, have a lot of blind spots. And I think a lot of times if you kind of look at yourself, if you kind of look at the inner self of you as the whole person, the leader, if you're honest with yourself, if you actually do the work to maybe get quiet for a little bit and be like, hey, what are the areas as a parent, as a husband, as a coach, as a leader that like, what are my blind spots? I heard this leader that was part of he went into a company to do a consulting deal and he went in and he had every one of the employees fill out an anonymous survey about that leader. And they said, hey, what are some blind spots the leader has? Well, someone anonymously filled out and they said, this leader has so many blind spots. He legally should not be allowed to drive a car. And, he looks at the survey and, he's at first he's like, okay, why would, but then as he sat with it, he's like, there's something here. There's maybe truth in the middle that I need to hear. And so I think part of it is just having the humility to maybe slow down sometimes and say, like, is there someone in my circle, in my life that I'm like overlooking because I am so busy? And I think the people closest to you they can point it out pretty quickly, right? It's like, I want to be, loved and respected the most by the people who know me the most, right? And I think that's true of all of you on this call. And so I think like the conversations when I think about me and my wife that I have of like, hey, this is gonna be a hard conversation. But like, what are your thoughts on this? And then like me actually listening to my wife for that feedback. I know this isn't a marriage podcast, but I think so much of this is integrated. And so I think to answer your question, it's like so often we think, for me in business, it's like scale, scale, scale. Or for you in athletics, it's like, how do we win, grow, win right now? But it's like, are you thinking about the foundational things that allow that to happen? It's like, and also, are you a leader who is with humility and integrity? Are you open to that kind of feedback? And so that would be, I think, a challenge just to think through is there an area of your leadership that maybe has a gap that you're like, you know what, like I've been going so fast. I've like overlooking this person right in front of me. And I think as leaders, we can, that is a discipline to slow down and to think through that. And that's why things like this are powerful. That's why doing a mastermind's powerful. Again, that's why I love coming into schools and doing a workshop and thinking like, let's take 2 hours off of the normal grind and think through this. Who do you want to become as a leader? Who are you, and that's what I get fired up about. And so truly I think taking a look internally to say, who do I want to become? What do I stand for? Because as a leader, when you know what you stand for, decision making becomes easy.
That's so good. I think that sometimes as athletic leaders, and I was guilty of this as well. You think that the walls of that building are going to collapse, like if you leave, right? If you get out of that building, they just will not be able to function. Well, guess what? When you retire, they're going to put all your stuff in a box and they're going to give you that box, and then you're going to leave, and then somebody else is going to come in and they're going to fill that office, and they're going to continue. Kids are going to still participate. Coaches are still going to coach. It's going to keep moving because it has to. And so, to your point, there's nothing wrong with, you said, getting quiet for a minute. I love that phrase, that the power of the pause to reflect or maybe even connect with other people that are in your position, because we're the only people on our campuses that know what we do. And so get out and get connected with those people, whether that's your state organization or just other ADs that are around you, so that you have someone to talk to. So you have someone that's doing the same thing that you're doing day in and day out. I think there's great power in that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, one of my neighbors where I live, he's like 73 years old, and we'll meet up this Friday for lunch, and we're just doing life together. He's way ahead of me in life in so many ways, right? Age as well, a few more gray hairs. I'm starting to get there, but but it's like there is so much power in that, and having someone who's gone before me just to do life with in that way. And I'd also say as ADs, one encouragement I would give you is what are the if you answer that if you ask, someone asked you this question, I guess I'll ask you right now, are you in the way you communicate people, are you a trust builder or a trust breaker, right? And if you're being totally honest, like the way you communicate with people, trust builder or trust breaker. And I think a question I want to ask you is, what story are you telling? Like my company is shareyourstory.com, and we've published a lot of books for athletic directors to help tell their story. But I would even say from communication standpoint, like uh, so often to build trust, it's the story that's maybe that you're telling, but also how is it perceived? And so I think from a communication standpoint, so much trust is built with not only just talking the talk, right? It's like what I said about Mike Alden earlier, this Hall of Fame athletic director at Mizzou. It's like walking the walk. And I think that's where, again, if you pulled up ESPN right now, there would be some ticker on there about a news, story about some coach, athletic director, athlete that deals with an integrity issue. And so John and Gordon and I truly believe that in this moment of time, this message is so powerful. It's like all these athletes, NIL, all these things happening. You have a huge opportunity for impact, but also you're given a lot of responsibility. And so what are you doing? What things are you putting in your life to allow for some guardrails and for some long-term success? And I think that's what people don't talk about enough today. It's about like, oh, well, how can I win right now? It's like, well, hey, what are you building? What are the foundational pieces you're putting in place? And I think, the really amazing, successful ADs that I get the chance to work with and get brought into their schools to speak, it's like I see them doing that.
That's good. Let's lean into that integrity piece. So you make a strong case in the sale that integrity isn't just a value, it's a foundational leadership practice outlined through the four laws of integrity. And without it, it's really hard to sustain influence over time. What did those four laws teach us about the connection between integrity, trust, and long-term leadership effectiveness?
Yeah, I'll talk about all four principles are in the book, but I'll talk about a few of them. The first one is that integrity builds trust, right? So if you just think right now, so for all of you athletic directors, you have obviously achieved success to get where you're at right now. You've done a lot of things, but also people have helped you along the way. So right now, I want you to think through maybe someone in your life who has helped you achieve to where you're at today, success to where you're at today. Maybe that's a parent, maybe it's a coach, maybe it's another athletic director. I would argue that person who's made the most positive impact on your life, they probably have modeled integrity to you in different ways. They were there for you when you needed them. You could count on them. They talk the talk, but they walk the walk. And I just think what's interesting about observing people in our lives who make a positive impact on us, the cool thing is we get like free things we can take from them. And so I think it's when you think about that person who's made that impact on you, it's like, guess what? You can also be that for someone else. And I think I can point to different people in my life very specifically. There's athletic directors in this call, Chris Moment. There's others that have impacted me that are literally in this call today, Sam Ferguson, others that I've just been profoundly impacted by. And again, it goes back to the Billy Graham quote. There are some professions that you could do that you're literally, especially with AI now, you're never even talking to human beings, right? But what's cool about this call is that leaving this call, you all have people who are counting on you, who you've been given a platform to steward those relationships. And I think when you think about the word stewardship, it's like, you think about like cultivation, right? You're a plant that's growing. You have the chance to steward, to be a good steward of what you've been given. And I think the athletic directors who at the end of their career are the ones that look back and say, wow, I'm glad I did it the way I did it. It's the ones that led with integrity. They said that, hey, I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers, but I'm gonna show up with excellence every day, even if I receive bad news, even if I, don't know, I'm just gonna continue to show up every single day with excellence.
Hmm. That's good. And I think too, you mentioned that gentleman that you have that connection with, that older gentleman. Uh, And as you talk to people that have done it before you, that's a cheat code. I mean, I think that doesn't mean that you have to do things the exact same way that they did, and it doesn't mean that you're going to have the exact same experiences. But I see that as a cheat code for that when something happens that maybe has never happened to you, but it happened to somebody else, and you had a conversation about it. It equips you to better handle that situation. Correct?
100%. And what's
Yeah.
funny is the person I meet with, he's in air quotes a spiritual coach, but guess what? I get so much business advice and he's not even a business guy, but we're just talking about he has all these frameworks and things like that. And so I think the more you're in not only accountability, but you have just true friendships with people who are willing to speak into your life and you allow them to do that. I think everyone wants to be fully known and fully seen. And I think so often we're so busy, especially in the world of athletics. You see people who have, with success comes a lot of things, right? And I think so often, sometimes the most foundational, most important things um, get overlooked because of money, power, fame, all these things. And I think what's cool about a group like this is you can talk about things that are impactful, that are meaningful. Because it's groups like this that allow you to have these relationships that go from virtual to then in person to then you're making impact together. And that's what's so powerful.
No, that's so true. And that idea of talking, the more you can talk through something, the more you can figure it out. Sometimes on your own, right? I mean, it's not like it's unattainable within your own capacity. Sometimes, my assistant was in here this morning. We were talking through a problem, and and the more we talked about it, and the more we kind of talked it through, we were able to, I would say I was able to come to a solution that I felt good about, that she felt good about, and it was really just because we leaned in and we put the time to discuss it further, right? And to kind of almost like play ping pong, right? It was we were just kind of going back and forth until we were like, yeah, I think this is going to be the best way to do it. And so I think there's great power in that for sure.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. A quote that I love is in an abundance of counselors, there's victory, right? So it's like to try to navigate these things on your own. We saw during the pandemic what it's like to be in isolation and to go through some of these things. But there's so much power. I think about even kind of a small group that I'm in with other like-minded people that are my age going through, we all have young kids and just the power of that. It's very powerful. And yeah, I think you nailed it, man. Just being around people that are like-minded makes a huge difference.
Good deal. All right, so I'm going to turn it loose. Jake, I don't even know if you know it, but you have your hand up. So uh, if you've got a question, by all means, unmute yourself and feel free to ask Alex while we've got him. right. Everybody's got it all figured out. You answered every question that every person could
No,
possibly have today.
that's great. I just dropped a link in the chat as well. Like I mentioned earlier, I love connecting with other awesome ADs and get to travel the country and speak at a lot of schools. So I did put my info in there for anyone that's planning in professional development, things like that. Would love to, yeah, take this conversation even further about, as it relates to your athletes, your program on building trust, and um, just wanted to send that as well.
Yeah, 100%. Is that the best way to connect with you? I wanted to give you an opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, that's the link there. And then I'm also going to drop a link right now for our company, shareyourstory.com. So, like I mentioned, we've had the chance to work, whether it's on marketing initiatives for athletic programs or it's publishing books for individuals. If you're kind of in your mind, if you've been kind of working on a story as well, or you think that's something that you're called to do, would love to connect with you as well and get you plugged in as well in that way.
To give
So,
you, I want to ask you a question about that because I think that's a
yeah,
fascinating concept. That idea of what what share your story does, right? Because we all have stories. It's a matter of how do we get them from our brains, you know, on paper. If someone is doing that, and again, we talk about cheat codes, and I got you on here, and I'm gonna put you on the spot. Like, where does somebody start? Like, where does obviously reaching out to somebody like you and your company is a good first step. But where do you start when you've got something you feel like is weighing on you? You want to get it out there. How do you do that?
that's powerful. I think the first thing, whether you ever do a book or not, is understanding that you are a storyteller. And as a
Hmm.
company, that's what we leaned into is on encouraging and empowering storytellers. Because think about it, we're in this age of AI where there is so much fake. Everything's fake, right? And this next generation that's coming up, Gen Z, what they're really good at doing is telling the difference between real and fake. Because
That's a
why?
fact.
Well, the studies are showing they're on their phones scrolling for 9 hours a day. And so, it's kind of like that deal when you look on the Facebook or see Facebook and you get a text from, someone, your mom or your grandpa, and it's like, did you see that Facebook video? And it's like, no, that was AI, that wasn't real. Everything's like that right now. But I think the people who are standing out are storytellers because whether it's the printing press to all the different ways that through the media era, now we're at this AI world. Um, Story moves people. And our encouragement to people is that people engage and buy from people, not brands. And so I
Hmm.
think every one of you on this call, you have your school you work at, all your athletic program, but like you are your own thought leader. And so to answer your question, I mean, there's so many angles I could go on the book publishing side of things, but truly, if you feel like you have a story that you're like, I have a framework, I have learned skill and knowledge and stories. That's what we help do is we help kind of package that together. So that could look like LinkedIn content, that could look like a book. But more than that, I would just encourage you, if you are on this call, you are a storyteller, you have a unique experience and a story to share. And so, again, going back to the stewardship piece, it's like, what are you doing it's not about you. It's not always about, oh, just me and my brand, but it's like, how do you package your expertise in a way that actually helps people? It adds value to people. And so that's where I would say where to start is just understand that like you have a platform and what are the ways that you're going to utilize that to the best of your ability.
Hmm. So good. Anybody have any questions before we let Alex take off? All right, Alex, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate you saying yes again. And good luck to you. Again, our books, you've got The Sale, and Becky's going to put that up as well as Thrive You. Both are home runs. And so, by all means, I strongly endorse both of those to add to your professional library because you're definitely going to be better for it. Alex, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for having me. Everyone go crush it and keep making an impact.
All right. See ya. So also, Alex is our podcast recommendation as well. The Alex Demchik Leadership Podcast. There's some excellent stuff on there. I don't think they don't release episodes currently, and I don't even know if it's a current active podcast. It's on his website, but it is full of great information. So I wanted to share that with you today as well. Wanted to share a video with you before we kind of open the floor. Um, so Here in the greater Atlanta area, there's a monthly meeting. I may have mentioned it before. Mike Lynch, he is the host of the Lynch with a Leader podcast. He hosts a lunch on a monthly basis, and they look at it's a faith based. He's a pastor, and they take someone out of Scripture and they follow their leadership journey. So it's looking at them through the eyes of them being a leader. And a lot of what we've talked about this year has been leading through crisis or turbulent times, having difficult conversations, stuff like that. And so I wanted to play you a piece from this one that was just yesterday, just was Monday, and when it talks about how do we handle a crisis? We are all either in one, coming out of one, or getting ready to go in one, right? And so I want you to listen to this little excerpt from it because I feel like it's absolute gold.
So we've got a podcast. It's not releasing this summer, but we're going to get to watch it today. This gentleman, his name's Jack Briggs. We got connected last summer. We recorded it a month or two ago, but it's coming out in June. He's a Major General, 30 years, Air Force, 225 combat missions. But the reason I wanted him, for 10 years, he oversaw NORAD, which was the defense of North America. So while we're all going to sleep at night, he's the one thinking about our borders, thinking about flights coming on and off on our continent, ships coming in. Now he works with university systems all over the world in securedness and preparedness. He's currently working at the University at Colorado. He was at New York University overseeing all their systems. He had two things he talked about in the podcast I think are really relevant. I promise you want a sheet of paper and take down some of this stuff from Jack Briggs. Check this out.
How do I get to that where I can make confident decisions at the moment? I like to ask 4 questions. And these 4 questions, I tell my staff, I tell my boss, I tell everybody, these are the 4, if it hits the fan, these are the first 4 questions we need to deal with. And already that reduces the temperature because everybody knows what's coming. Because I got the first step. In the military, when you're flying jets, we have a checklist that tells us, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do that. That's how that training keeps us from panicking. So if I've got a big decision, these 4 questions. The first question is this: what do we know? So I'm either asking my staff or my boss is asking me, what do we know? And I mean fact, like we absolutely know this. Not what we think we know, but what we know. And initially, that's going to be a very small number of things. That's a great question. But the second question is way more important. And the second question is this: what don't we know? Now, why is this important? This is magic. This is the elixir of solving a problem. If we have the willingness to ask our staff or to be asked, what don't we know? It does 2 things. The first thing is it allows me to trust the thing that you told me you know more. Because you know I'm going to ask you, what don't you know? So you don't have to make stuff up. The second thing that it does is it speeds up the decision-making process. Because you don't have to sit in your office and go, well, Jack's going to ask me this, or maybe this, or maybe this, or maybe that. No. You know what I'm going to ask you. And you know that I know you don't know everything. I'm giving you permission to not know stuff. And I force my boss to do the same thing to me. To say, well, what don't we know, Jack? Well, right now we don't know a lot. But the third question gets us to the next step, which is, what are we doing about it? So we've identified that we know some stuff. We've identified some stuff that we don't know. Now what are we doing about it? You can only really ask this question if you understand the decision-making process of your organization. You have to sit down and think about, how do we solve problems? Because you're asking, what are we going to do next? And when we do that, we unleash people to go out and innovatively solve the problem. Because we've identified that we don't know some stuff, and that's okay. And the fourth thing is I ask, Who else needs to know? I want the staff to understand that they don't have to have all the answers. They can pull others in. But who else needs to know about this? And they may turn to me and say, hey, boss, we've lost a lot of power on the campus. We need to have a conversation with the folks at the utility company. Can you reach out to them? I certainly can. Right? But they're the ones who know the lateral, horizontal connections that we need to make either inside or outside the organization. So those 4 questions. Why we do this is because we want to change the vocabulary of a crisis. Because honestly, you don't solve a crisis. And me as the leader, one of the most important was I had to control my reaction. You can imagine that if we had something catastrophic happen, if I reacted up here, like a scale of low reaction to high reaction, if I react up here, all of my staff, the only place they have to react next is above me. Why? Because the psychology is, I got to show the boss I am at least as bought into, but probably more bought into than he or she is, to show loyalty.
Boy, that's good.
And commitment. So if I react up here, they're going to overreact up here. It's panic, right? So as the leader, regardless of the situation, I'm here, way down here. I'm forcing myself. Now, what does that look like inside? It looks like that duck on water where there's nothing going on above the water and everything's going on below the water. But you got to suppress that, right? Because now if I show up like this, everybody, if I'm low on the reaction scale, I give a ton of room for my staff to respond, do the things that they're trained to do, and not just panic. In a story. So when I was the commander in Afghanistan at Bagram, I was about a month, and I just had breakfast, and I'd got my morning briefing, and I was going back up to my office in our command center, and I get called back down because there's an attack on the base, a large scale attack. We've already lost some lives of people that have been attacked, and we're in a firefight to protect the base. I'm getting this from one of my aides as we're kind of walking in, so I'm walking down the stairs and he's telling me what's going on. I'm like, okay. I open the door to go into the operations center and every head turns to look at me. Here's the general walking in. They want to see where I'm at. They want to see what's he going to be. And I walked in, I took a breath before I opened the door. I walked in and I looked around and I said to everybody, all right, this looks like it's going to be a long day. I hope everybody had a good breakfast. Get at it. You could feel the tension in the room go, because a couple of things. One, I showed that even though I'm inside, it's like, boy, this is serious. Externally, I'm not panicked. Second, by saying, get at it, I'm showing them that I trust them to go do the thing that they know to do. I'm not going to tell them what to do. I'm not going to tell them how to do it. They know what to do. Go do it. Right? That's an empowering thing for your team. Now, you can't do that if they're not trained.
That's right. That's right.
So you have to be thinking about, how do I train my team to be ready? This is one of those 10 decisions to make in a year, right? Big one. If we hadn't trained on these things ahead of time, I wouldn't have been able to say, go at it, go get it, right? Go do your thing.
So we've got a
So good stuff, right? I think anytime that you can learn from people that have been in those crisis type situations on a regular basis, I think that there is a great power in that. And so saw that and was not even going to try to recreate that by me telling you that. I wanted you to hear that from the source. And so I thought that was definitely something that you would find value in today. So I wanted to share that with you. Anybody with any thoughts or any discussion points, anything that's on your mind?
A quiet group today.
Daryl Nance, you have nothing to say today.
It's already been a long day. It's already. I will say this.
That time of year.
I get one of these. Of course, I'm late in my career, and I probably get asked, "When am I going to retire?" At least twice a day, right? I can tell you that Monday morning, the first email I looked at, I opened my phone. It's 7 o'clock or whatever. I opened my phone and I'm like, "Yep, today's the day." The very first email. I'm like, "Screw this! I don't need this crap anymore. I'm out." And I just put my phone down, and Tammy's like, my wife's like, "What?" I'm like, "Just can't believe that's the first thing I get this morning." I do some stuff. 5 minutes later, I pick up the phone, and it's the second email is, "Thank you so much for what you did. You made a difference for us by doing blah blah blah." Right? It's just, and I'm like, "Dang it, I'm back in again." And that happened probably 3 times on Monday. That was that giant pendulum swing, right? And it is the spring, and it's all the stuff that's going on. But it's kind of serendipitous that those last questions there, like, don't overreact. Because I could have just called in and said, "Yeah, today's the day." Click, you know. um, uh, and so those are really important questions there. That at the end, that last piece really made a difference for me. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that third one, what are we going to do about it? That's going to look different for everybody, because one of the things that he brought up was that idea of know how problems are solved in your organization, right? I tell people all the time, my district, we are not a speedboat. We're an aircraft carrier, right? We are the second largest district in the state of Georgia. It's not like a decision can be made super fast. It takes 8 people that have to say yes sometimes. And so knowing that's going to, that'll change maybe how you respond in an event, because you got to know who directly to go to. I need to know the one that can say yes. I don't need to go through 8 people, but knowing how problems are solved in your district. And some of you may have the ability to, speak directly to your superintendent on a regular basis, because maybe it's a smaller district, or you have more access in general. But knowing that, I think, was extremely important whenever you're assessing what you're going to do about it.
And giving their people a chance to, like you said, you got room then for them to do their job.
Right.
Right. I first call this morning was, "We've got tiebreakers in middle school playoff bracket. What are we going to do?" And the person who called me, I said, "We're going to let the sport chairs do their job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to call and do the tiebreaker for it. They know the tiebreaker. They know that that is their responsibility." And the person went, "Oh yeah, I guess that's a good idea." Click. And by 9 o'clock, they had done all their jobs, and all the brackets are done because we gave them room to do their job.
So good. Morgan, first of all, thank you for your service. I think that's a huge lesson. You want to unmute and lean into that real quick?
Yeah, Don, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Don. Yeah, most coaches understand that practice is where we make our money, but I really push my coaches pretty hard to make sure that practices are developmental and extremely beneficial. We can't waste time. We have to have a plan. We have to have it organized, because when the game gets stressful, we want to come out on top. And in the Army, we know that training is where you make your money. So I relate that to practice here.
So good. One of the things we mentioned in a district AD cohort the other day, we were talking about EAPs, and that idea that everyone does that emergency action plan at the beginning of the year. No one probably does that thing leading into the postseason. I think I would be surprised if everybody on this call said, "Sure, before we go into our playoff season, everybody redoes their EAP." They probably don't, right? And if you think about it, That's a completely different environment than a random Tuesday in season where I call it a DNA crowd, right? You just have mamas and daddies that are in the stands, to a playoff crowd where you may have more students, more people, more community members, more possibility, right, to have something go sideways. But if you haven't repped that EAP in months, you're really kind of just got your fingers crossed that everything works out that night. What if you've had a staff change, right? You've had a change in your staff, and the person who was supposed to call 911 is no longer with you. Well, you what are you going to do, right? And so I think that was something we talked about. That practice piece, Morgan, to your point, is it's an ongoing thing. It's not a one and done. It's something that you've got to do on a continual basis. So I think that helps navigate those crises as well.
Don, that's a great point you brought, because we did that on Wednesday with that district AD cohort. We had our district AD meeting on Thursday. And as soon as we got off the call, Andrea was typing that into our agenda for Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And reminded them, our ADs, of doing that on Thursday. And probably 3 or 4 of them had that light bulb go off going, yeah, we did that in the fall, and our spring coaches weren't even all in place yet.
Yeah.
So that was a fabulous reminder, because it's playoffs too. And that energy is a different energy, like you say, than the DNA Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Much more opportunity to something to mess up.
Anybody else, whether it's dealing with crisis or not, it doesn't have to be. Got anything else that they want to discuss? This is good stuff.
Well, I was just going to jump in and say something that came up that we've been dealing with at my school here. Is my team trained? So if you have a new coach or a new head coach, don't ever think, well, it's in their file, it's online for them to access. But have I adequately trained our staff? And so the head coaches know what they're supposed to be doing. They know where to reference. And the same thing with brand new coaches. And so that's something that stuck out as we're talking about this, that I've been dealing with, is just, never guess or think everybody knows or they have access. But have we gone over this so they know what they're supposed to be doing?
That's really good. There's a big difference between access and knowledge, right? Huge difference. That's a big gap. Just because you've provided it does not mean that they know it. Just because they have access to it does not mean they know it. And so you've got to definitely lean into that and empower them to say, "I don't know. It's okay." I'd much rather somebody say that so we can fix it than not, and then we run into something that is once we're reacting rather than being proactive. So that is John, appreciate that. That was really good. Anybody else?
Don, all I wanted to share on our front is that we talk about how this training and emergency works in just an everyday, whether it's a practice or how you run your office. Like I love what you shared there, and you go into a crisis and you want to calm everybody down, but sometimes you just want to go into work and have everybody in the office calm down and know you're confident in them and they're confident in you, because I feel like in 2026, every day could be seen as a small crisis in almost every setting. And then it works its way down to our student athletes who are experiencing a lot of anxiety when they compete. So we've literally talked about that, and it spawned from this idea of emergency action plan, but we've geared some of it toward just maybe life skills or how to approach each day.
Really, really good. A lot of kids, the time that they are with you is the best part of their day. Let's just be honest, right? And so how we interact with them is extremely important. It may be the only time that somebody cares about them. It may be the only time somebody smiles. It may be the only time somebody leans into them, tries to make them better in a 24-hour period. And so definitely extremely important to keep that at the forefront as well. Kids they're having to grow up a lot quicker than a lot of other generations before them. And so that's extremely important. Anybody else? All right, good stuff. So when we meet again in May, May 27th, we will have author, speaker, and former coach Jim Johnson joining us, winner of over 400 games, author of 2 books. Coach Johnson is most known for his kind-hearted gesture in inserting his manager, who was autistic, J Mac, into the Greece Athena High School final home game, which the Trojans won. J Mac, he came off the bench. He scored 20 points in just over 4 minutes, including 6 3-point baskets. I think that went viral. You may be familiar with that. And so he is going to be our coach is going to be our guest next month. And so really looking forward to that and him being able to share his story. And that kind of that's good to kind of parlay into what we were just talking about with kids, and because that's what this thing's all about. So thanks again for taking time today. We hope that you found value in the AD Roundtable. If so, please tell a friend. Tell as many people as you possibly can. Lastly, I want to thank our sponsor for the AD Roundtable, Daktronics, bringing big league scoreboards and video displays to high school athletics. Learn more at daktronics.com. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with something that I'm going to just leave you with here moving forward. You've been placed where you are for a reason bigger than yourself. And so just kind of keep that in the back of your mind as you do what we do, and keep pouring into kids and coaches every single day. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you next month.